Does everybody have a Hodu? Today we're doing 4 more psukim, as we've done throughout. And I'm admitting that it's a lot. Last week I didn't have enough time. I didn't get through everything I wanted to. But I think it's the better way to do it. Because we could sit on the same words over and over and over again. Lakol yesh gevul is what it comes down to. So my plan is to learn today again 4 psukim. That's my vision, my plan. And Hashem Yazor, as they say in the culture. So the 4 psukim begin on line 35 in the Hebrew text. I figured out how to do this, by the way. What I'm supposed to do is that in the English, I should put numbers that parallel the Hebrew lines. This is not helpful. You have a Hebrew text with numbers, an English text without any numbers. It's not very helpful for navigation. So when we do the next shtickele, which is going to be Mizmeh Shechanukas, IYH, and Mirz Hashem, if I tip this forward, it'll break, something will happen. Yeah. I just want to see more of me.
We see numbers of soup.
Yeah, like it's written like 7 or 9, and then it's like equal.
Yeah, but that reflects the sources. It's not, whatever makes you happy. I just feel like there's a better way for me to do it than in Mitzvah Hashem. When I do the next piece, I'm going to put the numbers on both sides so that you'll see the English line that parallels the Hebrew line. I think it'll be helpful for everybody.
It's not the same line.
Right. So what I'll do is, let's say the first line is 24, so the opposite will be 24. The second line is 25, and the English side will be the third line or the fourth line, depending on how there's many more English lines than Hebrew lines because it's a much more verbose language. There's a lot more words. So if you do the numbers in such a way that the beginning of the Hebrew paragraph in the Hebrew side becomes the number that parallels out of the English side, so then you can find the Targum, which is the point. Otherwise, it's why am I putting the English in there if you can't find it anyway? Okay, so we're learning Hodu, and we'll learn the 3rd section of Hodu. But one of you asked me last week a very good question. Where did this whole division come from? And of course, the answer is that it says in Chazal that David HaMelech wrote Hodu, and that the Beis HaMikdash was put up during the times of Shlomo HaMelech, after David HaMelech, and they became accustomed that the first part of Hodu they would read every morning, the second part of Hodu they'd read every evening, right? What about the third part of Hodu? It didn't exist. It didn't exist because the first part of Hodu is in the Tilim. The first part of Hodu is in the Tilim. There's no Tilim here. The first part of Hodu is like Psalm 106. Thank you. Oh, perfect.
It's Russian, but
it doesn't matter. It's Hebrew too, right? The first part of Hodu is Kapitel Kuf Hey and Tilim. Psalm 105 from the first pasuk until the 15th pasuk. Almost word for word, not mamash word for almost word. The second part of Hodu is Psalm 96. Okay? Almost word for word. The third part of Hodu doesn't exist. Why? They didn't have a third time of a day when they would read Hodu in the Beis HaMikdash. And the reason why that was is because the third part of Hodu is not a kapitel tilim. It's a pasuk from here, it's a pasuk. It's a big conglomeration. It's a big, as they say in Russian, a big vinaigrette. It's from all over the neighborhood. It's from all over the place. I learned that from Russians before you. So what we're suggesting is the first 2 parts of Hodu were said in the Beis HaMikdash because they represent a haida'ah, a submission and thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu during, quote, a better time. The third part of Hodu is a haida'ah, the submission and thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu during times of Golus. So it makes sense that in the Beis HaMikdash there was no third part of Hodu. I told you this last week, that the Rebbe's grandfather's grandfather was a Goan Olam. His name was Avram David Lavut. He was the Nikolaev Erov. He was of Nikolaev. The Rebbe, our Rebbe, was born in the city of Nikolaev. His grandfather's grandfather was a chassid from Tzemach Tzedek, and he was a Gaon, an incredible Talmud Chacham, and he wrote a very comprehensive commentary on the Alter Rebbe Siddur, which is called Shar HaKoilo. And he wants to say that the proof that Hodu was not said in ancient times is because we say Kel Nakamis Hashem, Kel Nakamis Afid, that the Eibishter is vengeant because of the Asara Arugi Melucha, because of the 10 martyrs. So he writes, there's no way that Hodu could have been said in the time of the Anshkan Sakadela. The 10 martyrs were martyred 400 years later, 500 years later. So therefore he argues that Hodu was not part of the original Siddur. And what I'm suggesting is the first part of Hodu was a part of the original Siddur, arguably the second part of Hodu, but not the third part. The third part of Hodu didn't exist. Somebody made it up. Why? So let's go through this again. We do this every single week. The first part of Hodu was Haidah of the Jewish people for Hashem's special relationship with them. The second part of Hodu was the whole creation, Goyim and the whole creation. Shirul Hashem, Shirul Hashem Kol Haaretz. The whole world sings to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is really more Mashiach than in historic times. But they're both very positive. The third part of Hodu was a Haidah that we sing to Hashem in Golus. That's why it starts with the words, V'hu Rachum Yechaper Aveinu. Hashem has to atone for our sins. Golus is a consequence of sin. Yidden and Golus are not so we're not in the best place. So therefore we start with Rachum Yechaper Aveinu. And that's what we've done now. I think this is our 4th class on Siddur, right? In succession. That's how I'm doing this. We're going to learn every week until we finish. My plan is we have a class today, and then after today, there is 2 more. In other words, in 3 weeks from today, we're going to go back to Sichos, and we'll sit on Sichos for a while, also for about 4 or 5 weeks. I'll try to make it fair, and then we're going to go to the next piece of Siddur, which is Mizmeshech and Ukzabayis David. And my plan, again, is we'll learn it from beginning to end. It's the best way to do it. I mean, to do a little bit, it gets very confusing. This is the better way to do it. So let me set up today's class, okay? So we did, first class was an introduction. Then we did 4 psukim from V'hu Rachum until Kamiyelim Hema. And last week we did 4 more psukim from Tnu Ezel Lakim until Hashev Gimel Agim. And again, I admit that I did not, I didn't have enough time. There are things that I started to explain that I didn't finish explaining, that it's so bad. I listened to the class afterwards. You can misunderstand me backwards. You could totally misinterpret the class. But I think it's the better way to do it. Lakol yesh gvul. I mean, I could sit on one page and sit there for a whole life, but it's not good. So we're doing 4 psukim today. Okay, but let me set up the class. There are Mamori Chasidus. That parallel, to quote you, Sarah with Esther. There's a lot of connection between Sarah and Esther, but they're very different. They're the same, but they're different. And this contrast of Sarah and Esther, for reasons that I don't have time to explain, parallels Yom Kippur and Purim. Sarah would be Yom Kippur, and Esther obviously would be Purim. So what do Yom Kippur and Purim have in common, and what do Yom Kippur and Purim not have in common? What Yom Kippur and Purim have in common is that the central theme of both of those days is Goylo. Right? In the Chumash, it's called Goylo. In the Megillah, it's called Pur. But they both mean the same thing. Pur is Persian for Goylo. Goylo means a lottery. Pur hua Goylo, a lottery. So what does a lottery mean? What is it like? Put a bunch of names in a hat. You put a number in a hat. You pull out a number at random. And you win, right? So on the surface, Goylo, a lottery, is random. It's chance. Right? It's whatever's going to happen. Right? I don't know. Take a chance. But of course, Torah teaches us, the Baal Shem Tov teaches us, that everything is b'hashgacha pratis. Every single thing that happens with b'hashgacha pratis. So even when something happens that doesn't make any sense at all, so maybe it doesn't make sense, maybe it doesn't make sense to me, and maybe even to the Eivish that it doesn't make sense. Because by Hashem, there are things that are higher than logic, higher than seichel, and that's the concept of a goydel. So you throw a lottery, you throw a goydel, and whatever comes out is the will of Hashem. And you say, this is not the will of Hashem for a reason that you could explain. This is the will of Hashem on a level which is higher than explaining. So Yom Kippur, they would take 2 goats, 2 seidim, and the kohen would place Ashnei HaSeidim Goydel Lois, Goydel Lechad LaHashem, Goydel Lechad LaZazel. He had 2 plates of gold. On one he wrote LaHashem, that means for the carbon. On the one he wrote LaZazel, that means it would go out of the camp and it'd be thrown off a cliff. And he would put the 2 Goydels in a kilfi, in a basket, right? I don't know if they put a block on his eyes. He didn't look. Yeah? He pulled them out. He put one here and one here. And it says in the Helik Sforim that if the Goydel on the right got La Hashem, that was a good year. If the Goydel on the right got La Azazel, then it wasn't such a kishmak year. And everybody wanted that the right side should go La Hashem. And I think it says in Sforim that it always came out that way. B'derech nes. When you throw a goydel, the laws of statistics, the laws of probability say that if you make every year the same goydel, it should be 50-50, 50 over the course of time, but it wasn't that way. It was much more often La Hashem and much less often La Azazel. Why? Because it's Hashgacha Pratis. But why throw a goydel? Why make a goydel? Why not just choose? This is La Hashem, this is La Azazel. And Chazal said that the two Seidim had to be the same. Bekoima, Bedomim, Bemara, they chose 2 goats that looked very similar. There wasn't a big one and a little one, a healthy one and a sick one. They were the same. And of course, the answer is that when it comes to Yom Kippurim, and this is Kate Slicho Mechila, it's the end of the Abish's relation with the Jewish people. When he judges us and he gives us Me'agutta Yor, Mitzvah Hashem, B'abona V'chaim Ezein Nevicha, B'kolm Nevicha, Me'agutta Sheduchim, L'arichis Yom V'shanim Tevis, M'tech Shalom V'shalom B'atzlocha, T'asach Pri Toiv. Yeah, so when you come to Yom Kippur, the connection that we have to Hashem is L'mayla Min HaSeichel. It's higher than reason. So throwing the goydel means we're not coming to the Eibishter and asking for a slichum mechila. Based on what makes sense, we're coming to the Eibishter and saying we're throwing a goydel. This slichum mechila, this atonement, this forgiveness, this kapora, this kinuach, this wiping away of what's not good from a higher seichel, a level which is above seichel. And the same is Jim Purim. What's the story of Purim? I was just walking before I left yeshiva. One of my boys asked me a question, Mamish, Cheshvan about Purim. He said to me, why didn't Haman choose Cheshvan instead of Adar? Cheshvan is a boring month. There's nothing happening. So I told him, look at Medrash. The Medrash says the Gemara even says what each Chodesh Smaila is. Anyway, why does Haman throw a goydel? Because many of the Shoyim tried to destroy the Jews. Many. Sancherev Melech Ashur, Nebuchadnezzar Melech Babel, right? Parei Nechei. There were many Goyim tried to the Jewish people. And when Goyim tried to destroy the Jewish people, what tool did they use? That Yidden are not good. They would invoke Yidden are bad, Yidden don't serve Hashem, Yidden worship idols. Why should they be Hashem's chosen nation? Why should they be special? Right? How do they say it in English? Blah, 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 blah. They don't deserve it. Right? And I'm sure you know the story of Yoina ben Amitai. It's a really strange story. Yoina ben Amitai cries. He's upset beyond words. When Goyim do tshuva, why should Yoina ben Amitai cry when Goyim do tshuva? Is that a good thing? Yoina ben Amitai knows if Goyim do tshuva, that means the Jews have another reason to be punished. Because the Goy is doing tshuva, the Jew isn't doing tshuva. That's the book of Yoina. And the Eibush has to explain to him that these are my children also, my creations also. You didn't work for it, you didn't plant it. When the tree rots, it bothers you. These are my people, my creations. Masa Yodai. Anyway, Haman. So Sancherev tried to destroy the Jewish people, invoking that they're Ivda Avodah Zarah, and he lost. Why? Because the Yidden were not such bad people. Nebuchadnezzar tried to the Jewish people, invoking also that Yidden were Avodah Zarah, and he fails. Parei Nechei, which is probably before Nebuchadnezzar tried to the Jewish people, also fails. So Haman knows. He's a big historian. that to try and destroy the Jewish people on the grounds that the Yidden are not Zakai, the Yidden are Chayiv, the Yidden are not good, failed. So Haman comes up with a new trick. What's the trick? I'm going to throw a goydel. I'll see what happens. If it lands on Tishrei or lands on Nisan, I won't destroy the Jews. If it lands on a month, which is bad for the Jews, I will take that as a sign that the Jews are vulnerable. So he throws a goydel, it lands on Adar, and the Gemara says, Samach Simcha Gedoyel. Haman was so happy. Why? Because Chedesh Adar is a bad month for the Jewish people, because Eiseh Chedesh Meis Rabbeinu. Meis Rabbeinu passed away Chedesh Adar. And of course, the Gemara says, La Yadash Eiseh Chedesh, whatever the story is, he didn't know Meis was born in that month, and so on and so forth. So what does Chassidus say? Chassidus says that if Haman had done what Nebuchadnezzar did, what Parei Nechei did, what Sancherev did, what the other Rishonim did, it would have worked. And Lashon HaGemara, the Smal Sosam, the basket of sin was full to the brim. If Haman tries the same trick, come to the Eibishter and say the Jews are not special, they're sinners, throw them away and start over, it would have worked. And Rachmana litzlan, he would have carried out a Holocaust like we experienced 70 years ago. Melech Shek Zeresav Kashim Kahaman. Haman would have succeeded in destroying the Jewish people. What was the Ness? Haman saw that all the people before him, when they tried to bring out the Yidden Arashayim, failed. He threw a goydel. And on the level of goydel, that Eibishter loves the Jewish people no matter what. That's the Taich V'na. The miracle of Purim is that everything that Rasha tried to do was the Ness. You understand? You understand? Haman threw a goydel. Had he not thrown a goydel and tried to destroy the Jewish people based on their own chayiv, their own heipachas, their lack of merits, it would have worked that one time. So he decides to throw a goydel, and because he likes to throw a goydel on the level of goydel, which is higher than reason, Hashem's love for the Jewish people is higher than reason, and David makes a nest. So Yom Kippur and Purim share this property that at the very, very essence, there is an aspect of higher than Seich. But that's where the similarities end. Besides for that, they're as different as possible. Yom Kippur is the most controlled day. In the Chodesh HaKadosh, the Kohen Gadol, right? The holiest time, the holiest place, the holiest person, and they convene in such a precise way. There's Chamish, there's no eating, there's no drinking, there's no wearing shoes, there's no washing yourself, and so on. Yeah? What's Purim? Adel Yada, that's what Purim is. Purim is, you go out of your mind, right? It's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch. It's the only day of the year when there's the inyan of shikras by Torah. Shikras, drunkenness. Yeah. Why? Because the idea of Purim is that our connection to Hashem is above the mind. We eat and we drink and we celebrate and we put on masks. The whole world has Purim a whole year. Yidden have Purim once a year. We put on masks, right? So they're opposites. So the essence of the 2 days is the same. The form of 2 days is opposites from one extreme to the next. So the question becomes, why are they celebrated so differently? Why are they celebrated so differently? Why is Yom Kippur such a controlled day? Everyone comes to shul. You dress in white. You try to stay in shul the whole mesles, the whole 24 hours. You say Tilim, you learn, you daven, you do tshuva, right? I say to this tshuva, Yom Kippur, auf der Welt. Ja, Yom Kippur. And Purim, you go out in the street, right? Lubavitchers are busy with Mivtzoyim, yeah, Malach Monis, and Metalos Avyedim, and Megillah, and Sudas Purim, and the Rikir is Chayiv Inish Lebesuma, you say L'chaim. How do you have two Yomim Tovim that their essence, their heart is the same, and their form, their goof is so different? What's the answer? Yom Kippur is the way you experience Goydel as tzaddikim. Purim is the way you experience Goydel as Bailei Tshuva. You follow? Yom Kippur is good Jews connecting to Hashem above their reason. So everything is so controlled. Everything is so exact. If a whole year I wear blue, Yom Kippur I wear white. If a whole year I eat, Yom Kippur I don't eat. If a whole year I stay in shul a few hours, Yom Kippur I stay in shul a whole day. And if I'm able to, a whole night. V'chuli, v'chuli. So Yom Kippur is goydel as it's experienced by tzaddik. What's Purim? Regular people, not big bali madrege, not people whose whole life is davening and learning and serving the Eibishter b'chol rega v'rega. People, prosta mensch. And people make mistakes, and people are inexact, and people waste time, and people waste a lot of things. And then it comes Purim, and they celebrate Purim by saying l'chaim, losing their minds, literally, losing their minds, so that they connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'mayla min haseichel. Right? But it's the way a Baal Tshuva does it. And the Baal Tshuva doesn't do it in a controlled way. He does it in an overflowing way, but not in the Beis HaMikdash. In the Beis HaMikdash, you have to behave. Purim is not in the Beis HaMikdash. Purim is on the street. In the Beis HaMikdash, you have to behave. Because the Goydel model of Yom Kippur is inside the Rishus of Kedusha, therefore it's very controlled. The Goydel model of Purim is outside the realms of Kedusha. That's why it's expressed in Adalei Yoda, out of control. You follow what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying, yeah? Now, so let's forget about Purim. Let's forget about Yom Kippur. Let's talk only about Purim, okay? What do we know about Purim? What about Purim? And again, I'm putting words in your mouth. I'm telling you what to think. In other words, I'm telling you one Indian, because I'm talking about Purim and Yom Kippur because I want to talk about Hodu. So I'm not just Stam Azoy. I woke up in the morning, let's talk about Purim today. So you'll see where I'm taking you, okay? It says in Hasidus that the miracles of Purim have two concepts. The greatest miracles that ever happened are the miracles of Purim, and the miracles of Purim are melubish b'teva, they're limited in nature. The greatest miracle of all is the miracle of Purim, and there's no ness. It was natural. You could explain the Purim story as a political drama. Two sides. A, it's the highest level of ness. B, it's not higher than teva. It's not above nature. It's within the limitations of nature. In other words, Purim is a revelation of the highest levels of Elokus, the highest levels of godliness. Yeah. What's the example? What's the model? What's the illustration? That Purim is the revelation of the highest levels of godliness. It's night. It's dark. It's over there. And the king, the Eibishter, is asleep. The king is sleeping. It's Golos. Hashem is acting like as if his relationship with the Jewish people forgotten. He's sleeping. And the king doesn't wake up. No, he's still sleeping. In the middle of his sleep, there's a disturbance. That's like Nada Doshnas Hamela. He continues to sleep. It's still Golus. In the Golus, Akate Avde da Achashverosh Anan. We're still in Golus. We're still slaves of Achashverosh. The Eibishter is stirred in the middle of his sleep. So it says in Kabbalah and it's brought in Hasidus, this is Atik Yiddish, the highest levels. The story of Purim comes to the highest levels, you see, but it's in Golus. When you experience the highest levels in Golus, so you see Hashem not in a way where he's fully revealed. You see Hashem in such a way where he's hidden in nature. In other words, the two sides of Purim, the highest levels of Elokus that are being revealed, but these highest levels of Elokus that are being revealed in Teva. You understand? Yeah? What's the example for this in Avodah? About Tshuva. Anybody of you know what about Tshuva is, huh? I was a teenager. This is true. I probably told this to you. I was a boy of 15, 16, 17. I grew up in Crown Heights. But my father was a rabbi of a shul of all the Balei Tshuva. All the graduates of Hadat Torah davened in that shul. And my home was always full of Balei Tshuva. And when I became a teenager, I found the concept of Tshuva overwhelming. An American boy or girl who's lacking for nothing. Yeah, they're an only child. They're one of two children, maximum one of three. What are they lacking? They're off in college. They're going to make they're going to have a degree, and they're going to have a career, and they're going to make a lot of money, and they're going to have a wonderful life. Suddenly leaves college, puts on a beard and a funny haircut and a shaitel and sneersticking clothes, and moves to Brooklyn and has 10 kids and raises a Chassidish mishpacha. It blew my mind. I couldn't get it. I couldn't understand it. What was so bad about their life that they gave everything away for this? So I learned in Marstan. Marstan has two yeshivas. Upstairs is the Lubavitcher boys, downstairs is the Balei Tshuva. I would go downstairs and I would hang out with the Balei Tshuva. and you see what tshuva is. The kama about tshuva, your yachida gets turned on. You become crazy. You become superhuman. For a little while, for 3 months, for 6 of a little while, and then you land, you become like everybody else. When a person is doing tshuva, that is goydol. It's yechida sheben nefesh mamish. I saw it with my eyes. I knew people, not a lot. I knew Jews who never stopped being Bali Tshuva. They got married to a Bali Tshuva. They had children. Mamish tzaddikim. I knew Yidden in this neighborhood who never stopped doing tshuva. Most people do tshuva. For 3 months you do tshuva, for 6 months you do, and you spend the rest of your life looking for it. I knew men, I was a child, I was a bocher, who never ever stopped doing tshuva. Think about it. They were mamish. When the Chazal say higher than tzaddik, I knew such people. Not a lot, but I saw such Jews. Unfortunately, they all pass away young. The holiest people don't last. But I saw Zachar mention, to become about tshuva, you have to reveal the etzem, the pinteliyid. But it doesn't stay out. It stays out for a while. But when that yechida comes out, right? So the Baal Tshuva becomes a big Talmud Chacham, knows the whole Torah. No, simple person. But the power of the yechida is infinite. The only way to explain how a boy or a girl, or even a man or a woman, would change their whole life and become a Shema Teru mitzvah is because the neshama is aroused at the deepest level. That arousal doesn't stay. It lasts for a little bit. And then you have to be like all the rest of us. You have to work. That experience of tshuva, that's goydel. That's purim. The yechida comes out in a regular person, not in a big tzaddik, not the person who's a big Talmud Chacham, not a person who spent his whole life from the cradle involved in Torah mitzvahs. In an ordinary man or an ordinary woman, you see what we call yechida. You see goydel. What you have here is an interesting mix. The highest level of neshama juxtaposed against an ordinary person. So the way you see it is it's a nes in teva. It's a miracle, but in the regular life. It's not a nes lamal manadav. Okay, now where am I going with this? Where am I going with this? This is the story of Golus. There were Jews who lived in times of the Beis HaMikdash. You know that. There were Jews who live in times of Golus. You know that too. You also know that the Jews who lived in the time of the Beis HaMikdash were a lot holier than we are. They davened better, they learned more, they knew a lot. Many of them had Ruach HaKodesh. Many of them had Nevuah. Many of them had Ruach HaKodesh, right? They were very spiritual people. These Jews were so saturated with Yiddishkeit, like Yom Kippur. But when it came to the test of Avodah Zarah, they failed, often. Right? They were very frum. Times in the first Beis HaMikdash, they were very frum. But their weakness was Avodah Zarah. They were very holy, very pious, yeah. Now, the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed. You didn't go into Golus. And they have tzoris. We had crusades. We had blood libels, alilas dam. You know what that means, a blood libel? They would kill Jews because they killed a Christian baby. The Goyim killed a Christian baby. They blamed it on us and they hung Yidden. Rahman al-Islam. Yeah. And then there's no shortage of tzoris. Yeah, it culminated in the Holocaust. Yidden had so many tzoris. But we don't do Avodah Zarah. Maybe we don't keep kosher. Maybe we don't keep Avodah Zarah. No. Why? Because they were much richer than us. We're very poor. But in our poverty, the goydel of the neshama, the yechida of the neshama comes out. What I'm trying to say in this long convoluted is that there's 2 types of connection between Yidden and Hashem. There's a normal connection and a crazy connection. The first 2 parts of Hodu are the normal connection. The third part of Hodu is the crazy connection. What's the crazy connection? We're very far away. But there's a power that comes from the very deepest level that's stronger than the fact that we're far away. And that's why we exist. And it goes both ways. We're closer to Hashem, even though we're so far away because of this power. And Hashem is closer to us, even though we're so far away because of this power. You understand? We're very far away. But in this distance from the Eibush, the deepest level of the Yiddish neshama, and the highest level of Elokus, the highest levels of godliness, sneak in, quiet. You don't see big tzaddikim, you don't see holy people, but you see tshuva, you see Mesiras Nefesh. You understand? Are we clear? Yeah, it was a very long speech. I didn't think it would take. Are we clear? Yeah. The entire section from V'Hurachu till the end of Hodu is about this. How do Jews survive in times of Galus? How? Hashem forgives. He especially forgives when we do tshuva. Right? Hashem's relationship with us is not conditional in our relationship with Him. And then last week, Tnu'ez Lalakim. Remember Tnu'ez Lalakim? Tnu'ez Lalakim is Tzchei Kasali Elakim, that Shem Elakim, the divine name Elakim, which means concealment, right? Elakim means concealment, is the tool for the deepest Gilui. In the darkness of Elakim, the Eibishter laughs. Remember, this was last week's class, right? We're going to continue now. I'm going to learn 4 more psukim. And the 4 more psukim are going to conform to the very same theme. That there's a concept of the highest Elokus coming down in a hidden way in the time of Golus. That's how we're learning this piece of Siddur. Follow? So we're going to read 4 psukim. One of these 4 psukim is Hashem HaYeshua. No, Hashem HaYeshua HaMelech Ya'anei Nevi'im Kenu. We say this psukim 4 times every davening. We said it a few pages ago in Titus. We're saying it now. We're going to say it in Yichavoid, and we're going to say it then again in Avotin. Hashem HaYeshua HaMelech Ya'anei Nevi'im Kenu. You say every day davening many times. But you know what? Every time you say it, it means something different because it's in a different location. Yeah, you have a siddur, yeah? Well, you don't all have siddurim. But if you'll get a siddur quick, I'll show you how many times we're going to say this prayer, this line. On page 21, it says Hashem HaYeshua HaMelech Ya'anei Nevi'im Kenu. Yeah? We're on page 28, Hashem HaYeshua HaMelech Kenu. On page 31, the last line, Hashem HaYeshua HaMelech Ya'anei Nevi'im Kenu. Right? Then we're going to say it again on page 67, the last line, Hashem HaYeshua HaMelech Ya'anei Nevi'im Kenu. And then we're going to say it again on page 68, middle of the page, Hashem HaYeshua HaMelech Kenu. You could say this 5 times every day. It doesn't mean the same thing in each place. There's always context. You understand? What's the context? The Yiddish is saying, Hodu Hashem. My relationship with the Eibishter is I'm smart enough to say thank you. But the level of the thank you is a submission. I'm not thanking Hashem because I see stars, I see fire. Because Hashem's presence in my life is subliminal. That's what Golus means. You see Hashem, but in Teva. You don't necessarily see miracles. You see Hashem. Hashem's presence is felt in a real way in the times of Golus, and as the Tzemach Tzedek says, even Machdo Eretz Yisrael, right outside of Israel, but it's a hidden presence. The argument is that you see Hashem in Golus in a hidden way, it's the highest levels of godliness that show itself to us in a subliminal way. So if this was the times of the Beis HaMikdash, we would see God. We would feel God. We would experience God. We would be uplifted by God, but it would be a much lower level. We also have a sense of God. We don't see Him. We don't feel Him, but we have a sense of Him. We have a Hodu. We have a Moide. We have a Hodu Hashem. It's a much higher level that comes to us in a much more concealed way. Do we understand? Do you understand? Yeah? Well, you understand? You understand? Now, let's read and translate. Begin on line 35, yes? La Hashem HaYeshua, the Eibishter has salvation. Al Amcha B'Chasecha Sela. Now the translation of the word, Al Amcha B'Chasecha Sela, on your people, your blessing is forever. Al Ha'am Shelacha, HaBarachot Shelacha Him LaNetzach. That's the translate the word. La Hashem HaYeshua, Hashem has Yeshua, Hashem has salvation. Al Amcha, on your people, B'Chasecha is your brachas, Sela forever. And then we say, Adeshem Tzavois, the Eibishter is the God of hosts. Tzvois means Hashem is the God who gets involved in the world. Imanu, who is with us. Miskav lanu, I think he translates in English. Rabbi Mangel translates miskav from the word miftach, fortress, a protection. I think miskav means he lifts us up. Elekei Yaakov, the Eibishter, who was the God of Yaakov. And again, we say the word selam, forever. Then we say Adeshem Tzavois, the Eibishter is the Lord of hosts. That means Hashem gets involved in the world. Ashrei Adam, lucky, fortunate is a person, Boiteach Bach, that has betochen in Hashem, that trusts him. And then we say, Hashem Oishia, the Eibishter will give us salvation. Hashem is going to save us. Hamelach, he is the king. Yaneinu, who is going to answer us. But Yom Karein, on the day that we call him. Yeah, 4 psukim. Now notice that the first pasuk and the last pasuk look quite similar, right? La Hashem HaYeshua and Hashem Oishia. And the 2 psukim in the middle say Hashem Tzvois, Hashem Tzvois. Okay, questions or comments? Go ahead.
I didn't hear. How do you say the Melech Haneinu
Hamelach, the king, Yaneinu, who answers us, who will answer us, B'yom Karein, on the day that we call. Of course, that's my job. Are we clear, Kindad? Huh? We're clear. Okay, so now let's break. I'm going to stop now. Let's try to do this for 5 minutes. Let's try to get back into it. There's no way I'm going to finish this. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. The next class is going to start. I'm going to translate the names of Hashem, okay? Which means I'm going to translate the word Hashem. I'm going to translate the word Yeshua. I'm going to translate the word Tzvois. I'm going to translate the words Elekei Yaakov. In other words, I am now going to translate words in these 4 sentences as a means of explaining to you what's happening. And what's the Nakuda? The Nakuda is, this is the relationship between God and people who are on a low level. The relationship between God and people on a low level has 2 rules. Number 1, it has to come from a higher place. And number 2, it comes in a more hidden way. You understand? From a higher place in a more concealed way. And I'll see you in 5. Yeah. Should I leave her on or should I end her? End her. It seems to be working better.